welcome to Views on News. I'm Jawad. Tehami. Thousands of women in India's violence hit Manipur state staged a massive protest in order to demand the arrest of those involved in parading two women of Kuki tribe naked and also sexually assaulting them. They have also demanded the resignation of the chief minister of the state. Similar sort of protests were also held in Kolkata as well as New Delhi. Now, a video emerged on social media a couple of days before in which a mob was seen as parading two Kuki tribe women naked in Manipur state and also sexually assaulting them. This has brought strong condemnation also from the US State Department, which called the incident terrible and brutal. Earlier, we saw the EU Parliament in a joint resolution urged the Indian authorities to immediately halt the ethnic and religious violence against the religious minorities and protect all the religious minorities. It also mentioned that at least 120 people have been killed, 50,000 have been displaced, while 1,700 houses and 250 churches have been destroyed in the violence since it erupted on May the 3rd. Now, the opposition in India also halted the parliamentary business, demanding that a debate should be held in the parliament on violence. Also, we have seen that the state government in Manipur has announced arresting 5 people in connection with this particular incident. To an utter surprise of many, Prime Minister Modi broke his silence, also called this particular incident as shameful and said that the guilty won't be spared. It would be interesting to see the sincerity of the intention of Prime Minister Modi and his government, whether a strict action is taken against the perpetrators, especially because the BJP government has itself been fanning religious hatred in the society since it came in power since 2014. To understand this, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Brigadier retired Mohammed Zeeshan. He is Director General at the Center for Peace, Security and Developmental Studies. Brigadier Zeeshan, thank you very much for your time, for being with us. And also in the studio, we are being joined by Dr. Shabana Fayyaz. She is Chairperson, Defense and Strategic Studies at the Quaid-e-Azam University. Dr. Shabana, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Brigadier Zeeshan, what is happening to Kukis over there in Manipur state? The violence since May the 3rd, as it has erupted, over 120 people have been killed, 50,000 displaced, 1,700 houses destroyed, with 250 churches also.
Thank you, Jawad. You have the last part of your statement is something we have to look at, the churches. This tribe is predominantly Christian, and they are minority in the state, and state is governed by BJP government. Now, the situation over there is not something new. The tribal tensions are basically for the distribution of opportunities and lack of development in minority areas. Recently, this tribe was given certain relaxations and certain opportunities for which the other tribe, which is in majority, has not taken it well. Now, the point to note here, as you highlighted, that after months, Prime Minister of India has broken his silence. Why after months? It is because of that video, that unfortunate video, and the condemnation faced by the government of Narendra Modi from both within the India and from his allies abroad in United States and in Europe.
That is exactly the question that I've been also thinking about. Why did he break his silence? And he didn't specifically say anything regarding the overall violence that was happening over there in Manipur state. He specifically talked about this incident of the violation of the women's rights.
Narendra Modi is, in my opinion, is right now trapped in his own strategy, where he emboldened the Hindu nationalism and used it in Kashmir, he used it in North India, in South India. Now Narendra Modi is trapped in his own narrative. If he condemns this violence, that is not going to go well with his predominantly Hindu nationalist supporters. And we must keep in mind that he is not more than 12 months away from his next elections. So, why he broke his silence? It was because the video was so ugly that, and the condemnations, they came from none other, the United States, the strategic partner of India. He had to break his silence. But as you highlighted, he hasn't said anything about the violence since May. So, that is something to be seen.
So, Dr. Shabana, what's your understanding? How do you think the violence since it erupted on May the 3rd, how the state authorities in particular have been able to handle that?
You know, the story of the Manipur is not something new. It's been going on for 1960s onwards, and the very, after the partition, the very joining or the forced joining of Manipur into the with the Indian government was forcefully resisted by the majority there. But what has happened is a very haphazard and ill-planned development of the state. There are very serious grievances both on the side of Kukis and the Meitei. And because some like Meitei, they say that we don't have the right to buy the land. On the other hand, the Kukis say that they are not leaving anything for us. So it is a very thin margin between the two. The important point is that the ethnicity, apart from communal violence that is a known stamp of India, and the religious, this time the ethnic plus religious element has coined together. They are half Christian and they are half Hindus. So it is, and then there are multiple sects within that. So it's a very complicated situation. And then what has happened in case of coup in Rohingya and the Rohingya crisis, there has been the mass migrations into this part of the Manipur, and they have also impacted the dynamics of the intercommunal, inter-ethnic relationships within the state. Like most of the developing states, you name it, we have it. The states have turned a blind eye towards the issues of communal reconciliation, communal interrelationships, communal inter-engagements, and enforcing of a people-friendly law and order. This is all missing, and the Manipur is a classic case of that. And why it became obvious, as Zeeshan Saab has very rightly pointed out, it became obvious because of the social media. Number two, to me, it's even in our part of the world, the things have happened around the world, gruesome things. But important is not only the external actors, the internal civil society within India and across South Asia. It has really criticized what has happened, and an incident that has been seen as a slap on the face of the so-called democratic and rising India. It is no longer a secular India. It is a democratic and rising India. That is the slogan they give to the world. So it is a big question mark on that. If you're rising, so you can't even protect your Christians there. So what else you can think of, leave aside the Muslims or the Sikhs and the otherwise. So this is, I feel, it's a story of neglect, and let's hope so. He feels it's an insult. If it is an insult, according to the Rahul Gandhi, let's hope and see that how this insult can be changed into a reward for the people of that state.
So do you think these condemnations, especially when you talk about the US State Department calling this incident terrible and brutal, that has actually prompted Prime Minister Narendra Modi to give a statement regarding this, calling this incident as shameful, and also saying that the guilty won't be spared.
I think G27 is coming up, the meeting.
G20.
And G20. And of course, the India is a very vital part of that, and Modi has to represent India there. And with this, you know, the EU Parliament, they have passed a resolution on that. US has said very strongly, and many other states have said strongly. So of course, before they participate into that, you know, of the rising and developing and democratic nations, how can they face that? So this is also definitely is a gimmick, is an attempt of any, you know, leader can be in his place to wash away, you know, this sort of incidents from what is happening back home.
Right, Brigadier Zeeshan, as you already mentioned, that he didn't specifically talk about the violence that is happening over there in Manipur, but he talked about this particular incident because of the international condemnations, because if he is going to talk about that violence overall, it is going to affect his electoral support in the upcoming general elections. So what about the international image of India? So finally he got those international condemnations also.
Interesting question. First of all, we should go back a little and look at the political strategy of ruling BJP under the premiership of Mr. Narendra Modi. Since the beginning, he has advocated majoritarian politics. The narratives which emerged since his first term are all based on majoritarian politics and emboldening the majority, Hindu majority in India. As Dr. Sahaba has highlighted, that where is the secular part of India which is celebrated in the West? Now coming to your question, that the condemnations which he has received from Western world, especially from United States, are basically on this incident. Those condemnations also unfortunately are not about the overall atrocities committed by a majority against a minority, as has been highlighted by Dr. Sahaba, and also it is not based on any political difference, but rather it's based on ethnic and religious differences between the two groups. The Narendra Modi is in a way, as I said earlier also, he is in a tight corner. His narrative has been now challenged aggressively in the mainland India. And why I said mainland India? Because Manipur is the northeastern part, which is considered little cut off from the mainland India, the seven sister states in the northeast of India. They are ethnically, in their culture, in their language, very different from mainland India. And right now, Narendra Modi has to keep his majoritarian Hindu nationalist politics alive, in especially mainland India. And he also has to handle the international condemnations and criticism based on what has happened in Manipur. But we must also see that the criticism which has emerged out of Western capitals, it is not very well directed, or it is not very focused. Rather, it is, in my opinion, kind of a customary condemnation on any kind of violence which has been shown so openly on social media, and the ugliness of that incident cannot be ignored.
So when we talk about the EU Parliament joint resolution, that was before this particular video emerged on social media. The resolution noted intolerance towards the minority of communities contributed to the current violence. It talks about the overall violence in the Manipur state. That there have been concerns about politically motivated divisive policies and promote Hindu majoritarianism in the area. So how do you analyze this one? Don't you think it's a sincere condemnation?
No, I feel it is another episode of hypocritical West towards such incidents in India. They will throw the red carpet to welcome Narendra Modi when he will come to their capitals, because Narendra Modi is coming representing a very giant economy, a market where they are interested in. I don't think that this resolution has any meaning for the people of Manipur.
So, Dr. Shabana, your understanding of it?
For the people like us who are the policy analyzers or policy thinkers, or people who are sensitive towards the human rights causes around the world, it is a very, very serious development. It is a serious development, like just if you read the US State Department reports on human rights across the countries, and similarly Human Rights Watch and others. But as has been said, by if it is read by the people who are in corridors of power and who are very confident and well connected to the corridors of economic superpowers in the world, maybe it will have a little difference. But important point is that we should not be stopping the discussion on these issues, because overall, as the something to give to the next generation, we have to sensitize them. Look, what is happening around the world should not be the part of the world discourse. This is something you have to understand, that human rights are an international norms. It is irrespective whether you are Muslim, Christians, Hindus, Brahman or whatever. Human rights cut across everything. And so this is, I think, a major challenge for anybody who writes, who thinks, who teaches, who analyzes these aspects. Of course, the world politics is very real world. It is something, as has been pointed out, that is driven by other elements as well. And if, imagine, instead of India, it would have been Maldives or a smaller state, imagine what could have been the reaction of the world. Since it is India or the others, organizations around the world are very sensitive to these causes,
what could have been the possible
but they
reaction
cannot dent the real actions.
What could have been the possible reaction of the major powers in that case, if the state was a smaller one?
They could have banned, they could have suspended the aid, they could have done the embargoes. Like in case of Pakistan, even with a middle-sized rising power, we had to face the nuclear sanctions. Even when the army came in, we had to face the sanctions. So there have been many, many examples. And if you see the Maldives and other countries, although they're very enterprising countries, they are in a very difficult position, to take into this. Imagine what will happen in case of Iran. The whole episodes of cutting the hair became an international issue. And but they were wise enough. They had a dialogue within, and they resolved it in their own way.
Right, Brigadier Zeeshan, when we talk about the way this incident happened, it shows the impunity, that lack of fear among the participants of that mob, who had no fear of the writ of the state or any sort of a fear that they would be booked under and brought to justice. So do we understand from this particular very instance that the Bharatiya Janata Party, with its ultra-nationalist stance, reflects the real sentiment of the grassroots public, or is it the grassroots level public which is now manifesting, which has been fanned and indoctrinated by BJP?
In response to your question, I will tailor the use of term the grassroots. I would suggest that we may say that the Hindu nationalist. Now, if we look at the demographic composition of Indians, the Hindus are somewhere close to 80%, 79 point something. Out of them, only 30 million plus are Brahmins. Now, understand the Indian society, it is based on caste system. That caste system is led by Brahmins, Hindu Brahmins. So out of 1.4 billion, and out of say 1400 million, only 30 million are Brahmins, which are actually the powerful elite of India. Other than that, the nationalist ideology which came to the middle category of various castes in Hindus, Hindu nationalist ideology, it has given them kind of an awakening that, we are so powerful. Coupled with that, the economic development and success they have achieved. BJP quite skillfully, unfortunately, but quite skillfully, they have used these aspects, the caste system, giving awareness to the mediocre caste of Hindus over the lower caste Hindus. So they started feeling that they are also kind of Brahmins. And that, kind of superiority emboldens communities, and then that support is translated politically in favor of BJP. Within this set of majoritarian Hindu nationalist politics, it is not going to go away, in my opinion. It is going to stay there. But it is alarming for Indian Union. The sensible voices, even from India and Hindu, as per the religion, they are Hindus. They are concerned that whatever they have gained in past 75 years, they may lose it because of this majoritarian Hindu nationalist politics and the violence. Because of that, the minorities are singled out, minorities are feeling vulnerable, and we not occasionally but very regularly, various parts of India. Now we should understand that India has almost 24 separatist movements. If we look at the geography, the Red Corridor, which starts from northeast and goes to the southern India, the 7 sister states of northeast, the Khalistan movement in Punjab, and then the Kashmir issue. All these separatist movements are pretty strong. The world community, the international press doesn't cover much what Naxalites are doing in the Red Corridor. Practically there is no Indian state writ in the Red Corridor. So all these problems, when they are translated into mainland, the main cities, even this the incident what we are discussing today, the unfortunate incident, it didn't happen in some far-flung area, it was the main city of Manipur. So this is basically a vulnerability converting into a threat for Indian nation, and we all have to be concerned about it.
So what I understand from your very comprehensive take is that it is basically the Bharatiya Janata Party and Prime Minister Modi very skillfully and successfully capitalizing on that very sentiment which was already the part of Indian peoples. Am I correct?
You are correct, and I must explain it further, that my opinion is not that it's Bharatiya Janata Party, it is Bharatiya Janata Party under Mr. Modi.
Right.
Bharatiya Janata Party existed before Mr. Modi, and there was communal violence, there was Hindu nationalism, but of not that level. What Mr. Modi has done, that he has become a narcissist, fascist. He does not want to share power with his own Hindu opposition.
Right. Dr. Shabana, your understanding of this, does this particular incident reflect that very sentiment that is already there, or is it because of that Hindutva narrative which we saw spreading at a faster rate after BJP took power in 2014 and then also getting re-elected back in 2019?
Continuing what Zeeshan Saab has said, I must say that it is a role of leadership is very important. And what we have seen as the role of leadership of Prime Minister Modi, it has really galvanized, because we must also remember he was the one who was stand on the other side of the Gujarat massacre. And people were saying, and after that he won the elections. So he was that was the basic start, of aggression, where the people voted for him, and and the police and the armies looked the other way. And besides there are other definitions and the problems associated with that. And interestingly, the role of leadership is very important, but if you look into the Manipur incident, it is also the leadership, it is also the lack of will of the state apparatus. The India is not like us, where you have the 4 provinces and 2 others, 5. India is very big, with more than I think 20 or plus, or maybe 26 unions, or the state unions, and they are quite, of course they are, these days the BJP is the most dominant party, but still the level of centralization is not much there, but the centralization of the mindset has penetrated into the ranks and files of the people. This is one thing. And second, I really feel is, if you look and talk to the Indian scholars, is that fear factor has really penetrated the civil society, who knows what is happening in India. Some of them right, but some of them know that it is wrong, but somehow they feel that if they write or do action, it might hurt them or the others in a very decisive way. So in other words, it is a democracy in the cage. So it is a cage for those who can either enjoy it or at their own terms, or who remain silent and sit in the corner. So unfortunately, if India does not shun away from its, this over-centralized and aggressive policies, the civil society space and the, the moderate leadership is going to be cornered.
So what are going to be the repercussions for the for Indian people overall in that
Indian
case?
peoples will, one important interesting point is, as has been pointed out, money matters. Money buys your mind. Money buys your comfort. So this is exactly a mantra of the capitalism. And this is exactly the mantra that is ruling the world. Irrespective whoever power, whether it is the US or the others or otherwise, money does matter. Now, the philosophy and others are used to buy more or used for the money purpose. So Indian population is very happy with the way, even I was standing once in a, this on way back to Pakistan, and the Indians were very happy that their rupa was being able, they were being able to use it in Qatar and in Dubai. So what it gives? The recognition because of their strong currency. So this mindset unfortunately has creeped away the human values and the secularism and the philosophy of the Gandhi and the Nehruism that is really going to damage the India on the long-term basis.
Right, Brigadier Zeeshan, now coming back to Prime Minister Modi's statement, when he says the guilty will not be spared, he goes on to say what has happened to the daughters of Manipur can never be forgiven. Now, looking at this very specific word of when he uses daughters of Manipur, so what do you expect? Will he be able to take any action with the sincerity of purpose and intention after he uses this particular words, because it has got huge significance, the word daughters?
Well, irrespective of our dislikes, we must give credit to Mr. Narendra Modi for his political acumen, the way he has been successful in his 2 terms, and he is going pretty strong for the next term also, the 3rd term also. So he will, in my opinion, certainly take action. Up till now, 5 people have been arrested who were identified through face recognition and from that unfortunate video. I think that this time he will undertake certain punitive measures against perpetrators of this atrocity, and he will cash this incident and now the situation for his political gains, and we will certainly see things emerging in next week or a month, and we would know that how skillfully Mr. Modi has used it for his personal gains, political gains.
Right. So, Dr. Shabana, what's your understanding when you use the word of daughters? What significance does it hold?
But to me, it gives a signal of ownership of the female population of the country, and of course outside. The daughters are everywhere around the world. And the most important, it also gives a message of respect and the message of protection. So as has been very well pointed out, this is a very calculated term, and there's nothing bad with it. Even that's very bad if you can play it for your own, but the fact is that to remove the scars of the society.
Brigadier Zeeshan says that he will be very skillfully using
well,
it
that
for his
time will decide. All the political leaders and the others, use, it's an opportunity based game, but the fact of the matter is the girls and the people and the family and the community that have served injustice and have faced injustice, they deserve grief, they deserve respect, they deserve the recognition that wrongness has been done. So I think this is more important. So of course, as has been pointed out, this action will vibrate, adding to his popularity more, and it may help him console the negative points that he has accumulated over the time.
Right, Brigadier Zeeshan, you have already mentioned that 5 people have been arrested in this connection so far. When we talk about the Kuki Women's Organization for Human Rights, they've accused the Chief Minister, who belongs to the majority Mitai community, of orchestrating the atrocities himself and then expressing sympathy with the victims.
I don't think so. There will be much repercussion for the Chief Minister, because it will be handled through the central government of India, and as Mr. Modi has now given a statement. So the issue which was highlighted by the Western powers, United States, now has been addressed by the Prime Minister of India. So the Chief Minister issue will remain localized, and there may not be very strong reactions or repercussions for the Chief Minister of Manipur. The local population and the local politics may continue, and we may find it in various parts of Indian media, but international media, I think, will be satisfied after this statement from Mr. Narendra Modi.
Right, the role of the opposition parties in India. They halted the parliamentary proceedings, also demanded a debate on violence, which was of course also this talked about that debate starting with a statement from Prime Minister Modi, which of course was refused by Bharatiya Janata Party. How do you see their reaction to this incident?
A very interesting question, but taking the cue from what Dr. Shabana has already said, the Indian politics is in a cage, and which includes the opposition also. What the Narendra Modi has done, that Hindu nationalism has become so strong that even the opposition parties have to address it positively, and they also tried in past also to use that nationalism in their favor. In my opinion, these actions won't matter much. The opposition, as you know, has recently formed an alliance which is coined as India, and they are now saying that it is Narendra Modi versus India. Very interesting political strategy. But how far it is going to get them the votes which they desperately need in the coming elections, that is to be seen. Opposition will certainly use this, but in my opinion, the 80% Hindus in India and the voters from those 80%, the Indian combined or coalition of opposition, they will have to be very crafty, very skillful in using Hindu nationalism positively, but at the same time portraying Narendra Modi against their coalition coined as India. So it is too early to comment that.
Right, Dr. Shabana, the role of the opposition parties when we specifically talk about this horrific incident of Manipur.
Opposition parties, specifically in India and worldwide, is a watchdog of what happens inside the government and what should happen by undertaken by the government. So in Indian democracy, if you look into the pathways, the opposition record has been very healthy. It doesn't matter whether, as has been said, that what they say will be acted, but the point is that what they say a lot, like Shashi Tharoor, what he has said recently, and the Rahul Gandhi, and almost all Mamta and everything, the people are speaking up. It's not that they are silent, they are not silent, but the fact of the matter is that maybe time is against the tide, and 2 terms have gone, and as has been pointed out, the 3rd term may again gone, or it is let's hope so, it is a split government, which I frankly don't believe in, but let's hope so. So there can be a better ways for saving the prosperous or the dream of India. What was it? But otherwise, the role of opposition will remain more of a critical insight into what's working on or going inside India.
Right, Brigadier Zeeshan, as you have already mentioned, that the formation of this alliance named as India, it's an alliance of 26 opposition parties. Are there any lessons to be learned when it comes to electoral politics from the Karnataka state polls, in which the BJP was earlier in power and we saw the Congress toppling it?
Yes, it is something which has encouraged this alliance. And as I see the Indian politics, it is not like Pakistan. India is a very large country. The localized politics dominates the voting pattern. And Congress and the other regional or provincial state parties, they will have to concentrate on the localized issue and win seats by getting votes in that localized political environment. India cannot be won by a coalition or a single party based on one agenda or one narrative for the whole India. If you see that there is a general overarching or an umbrella narrative by a political group, and then when they go to each state, the localized politics take over. Electable issue is there also, and the Hindu nationalism support, this is something which I feel will be the biggest challenge for this coalition India.
So it's going to be an uphill task for this alliance when contesting.
I don't say uphill task, but a challenging task.
But we see this alliance comprises 26 parties, right? So there is a National Democratic Alliance, which is headed by Bharatiya Janata Party also, that comprises 38 parties. So in that sort of a scenario, it's also going to be a challenge.
I will go back to 1937 and relate the situation today in India with what happened in 1937 elections. Muslim League lost, big deal, All India Muslim League. Why? Congress went to each state, they supported the localized state or provincial based parties which were dominated by Muslims. Congress gave them a better deal, and those Muslim parties joined Congress. Although that after the elections, what happened between 1937 to 1939 opened the eyes of Muslims all across India, the undivided India, pre-partition India. And then under the leadership of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, those parties joined hands, and then they said that we will not go into alliance with Congress, rather we will remain under the banner of All India Muslim League, and that was the success of 1940, 22nd and 23rd March 1940. So that was how the politics was played skillfully by Congress in 37, and how Muhammad Ali Jinnah used the follies and atrocities committed by Congress when they went against their promises with all the localized Muslim parties in 1939 and 1940. So similarly, if this coalition of 26 parties, which is the opposition today in the India, if they use a similar kind of strategy, they may topple the majoritarian hold of BJP on India.
Dr. Shabana, your expectation, what are the prospects of this particular alliance of 26 parties against an alliance of 38, and also with the recent victory of Congress in Karnataka state polls against the BJP?
I believe that it's an uphill task, but as has been given example of Karnataka and of course the pre-partition example as well, we also must remember that BJP coalition is much older, and this India coalition is hardly a year or two. So to solidify a coalition is a big task, and to solidify the coalition, you have to be seasoned and you have to go through at least 1 or 2 defeats and 1 or 2 successes. So this is my point of view. But again, I will stress one point is that it was has been given the role of Jinnah, the skillful maneuvering. What is politics? It is a skillful maneuvering and a dialogue based on national interest or a wider interest or an ideology. if that Rahul is in that position, Rahul Gandhi, and his influence penetrates up to the bottom and bottom of the leadership to the larger masses, he is very popular. And he has to cash on the vulnerabilities and the loopholes that the BJP has created. Then it can be, and which I see can be a very promising future for new government. Yeah.
The loopholes of Bharatiya Janata
I
Party?
think they will use it because Rahul Gandhi and others associated with, they are very sensitive. And it is not only in case of Manipur, what happened in case of the crackdown and this action in the Indian occupied Kashmir. He even went there along the delegation and was not allowed to leave the airport. And he did a press conference and others. So he is not only playing against the one and another, he is playing the real Congress philosophy. But it is another question that will Congress philosophy will ever mature into the resolution? That is another question.
Right. One last question, Brigadier Zeeshan. When we talk about the capacity of the prosecution and the judicial system, do you think when you talk about that unfortunate incident with two Cookie women, will the justice be served?
Well, if it is coming from Narendra Modi, it will be served. But if there are certain, innovations and they want to take out the culprits from, right now the culprits are in a frying pan. They will remain under the focus of media for at least few weeks or a month or two, but later on subsequently they may be dismissed, the case may be dismissed, as it has happened in many cases against Muslims in various parts of India. So for now, yes, it will be, in optics, the justice will be served.
Point well taken. Unfortunately, we are short of time. Dr. Shabana, will the justice be served?
It has to be served. It has to be served. There is no second question about it.
Dr. Shabana, Fayyaz, Chairperson, Defence and Strategic Studies at Quaid-e-Azam University. Thank you very much for joining in at Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. And also in the studio, we were joined by Brigadier Retired Mohammed Zeeshan, Director General at Centre for Peace, Security and Development Studies. Thank you very much for your time also for being with us on Views on News tonight. Really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.